Good afternoon to you all. My name is Jerry Power and I am the National Head of Sales for Emergence, and I will be your host for today's webinar. Emergence has been busy over the last few months introducing an updated new commercial wording, updated portal, the first ever personal cyber policy in Australia, and this month we are very proud to introduce more innovation to the market by announcing that Emergence is the first cyber underwriter in Australia to bring incident response solution in-house. As a niche cyber underwriting agency, where all we do is service brokers and think about cyber, our pioneering spirit and focus on innovation has delivered another essential element to getting businesses back up and running after a cyber event. Many of you are keen to understand how we are reinventing cyber claims management, so let's not waste any time as we've got loads to talk about today. Firstly, Troy has some exciting news to share with you all. He will also give us an insight on the strategy behind bringing the incident response and claims management solution in-house. Our head of claims and incident response, Blake Baxter, will get under the hood of the new claims setup and walk us through the new in-house capability. The legendary American, Jeff Gonlin, will provide us with some interesting insights as to what sort of cyber claims Emergence are seeing in our portfolio. Some of the stats would be interesting to share with your clients as to what's happening out there in the wild. I will update you on the coverage and support we provide you, and also update you on how we manage our cyber portfolio and how our capacity providers support us in delivering consistent capacity and capabilities to you and your clients. And as usual, there will be opportunities for you to ask questions. Before we start, let's square off some housekeeping matters. I'm pleased to advise all attendees will be entitled to 1 CPD point for attending today's webinar. You can post questions at any time during the webinar. The Emergence team will reply to as many of them during the webinar as possible, and we will then have 10 minutes at the end to discuss a few of the more interesting questions. As a thank you to all of you who have joined the webinar today, we are running a competition to win a fantastic Google Nest Hub. The good news is you're all automatically in the draw. I will provide you with more details later. Many of you will know Troy, who is the founder, CEO, and driving force behind Emergence. As you can see, he's lost a bit of hair during the COVID lockdown. Troy has got some good news to share with you today, and he also will walk you through the strategy around setting up the in-house incident response solution. Over to you, Troy.
Thank you, Jerry. I've also put on a little weight as a result of working too close to the pantry. Thanks for joining us today. I just want to take a couple of minutes to set the context for today and also give some background on the strategy of Emergence and why it's important having the incident response and claims handling under one roof. Before I do that, I just want to say thank you. We're delighted to have been awarded our 3rd consecutive gold medal for cyber and information technology. This is in addition to our 5th Brokers Pick Award in 6 years for our cyber event protection product, based on the recent survey. Thank you to all brokers who voted for us for your continued support. As a young agency, this is important to us to not only demonstrate and give the broker community confidence in our capability, but also to show the consistency and continual growth of Emergence into becoming a leader in the cyber market. It also demonstrates our commitment to the cyber market. And it is that commitment that's driving our strategy. We will continue to innovate around product development and underwriting. It's also that commitment, leadership, and pioneering spirit that led us to launch the first standalone personal cyber policy. The feedback and take up over the last couple of months has been brilliant. The team are working on lots of opportunities with brokers and on strategies to roll this out to clients. Very recently, a broker was the first to sell not only the cyber insurance for the business, but they also managed to sell the business 243 personal cyber policies for their staff. That idea of you insuring the business and also providing benefit to their employees is a great one. In the remote working era that we're in currently, this has significantly increased the vulnerability of businesses. In a recent Ponemon Institute report, it highlighted that work from home was the #1 issue businesses face. When you consider this environment that we're in, Emergence provides brokers with the ability to offer a holistic cyber solution for your clients. This firmly positions brokers in safe hands to be able to have those risk management conversations with clients around cyber. To further enhance our proposition and fulfill the promise we make on the underwriting side, the focus has been for us to build an incident response and claims management capability. This has been building behind the scenes for the last 18 months. As a dedicated cyber underwriter, we are passionate about our primary purpose of helping customers recover from a cyber event. I urge you not to think about cyber insurance as a commodity that is bought simply on price. It must be a service solution that is bought based on the value the client gets from a cyber proposition that is backed up by a comprehensive coverage and is led by an incident response capability that is decisive and critically important at a time, particularly when their business is being impacted. Our policy wording is second to none. This protection, coupled with access to cybersecurity experts, provides an end-to-end proposition like no other in the cyber market. This is backed by the largest dedicated cyber underwriting team in the country. And you can start to see the journey that we're on and what we're trying to make our business. We're extremely happy and grateful that you've decided to join that journey with us. Now, the reason why we're here today. Regardless of any organisation size or industry, the likelihood of it being exposed to a cyber attack is increasing. We're reading articles about it every second day. Cyber attacks are becoming more targeted and more damaging to organisations. Every second counts. As our reliance on technology increases, effective incident response is an important yet often overlooked requirement for businesses. For this reason, it's imperative that all organisations have cyber insurance, or at the very least, access to cybersecurity experts to help guide them in the most appropriate way should their business be compromised. Every second counts. Our incident response team, made up of cyber breach coaches, help our insureds manage cyber attacks in many ways, such as limiting damage, increasing stakeholder confidence, and reducing recovery times and costs for your organisation. Cyber breach coaches provide our insureds with peace of mind during a time when their business is at its most vulnerable. When a cyber breach coach is involved, actions can be taken confidently and efficiently as they are coached through all stages of the incident response process. This format provides reassurance for our insureds. Organisations that are well prepared for an attack will be more collected and calmer during an attack and better positioned for the aftermath. The cyber breach coach is supported by a dedicated cyber claims team that understand the idiosyncrasies of a cyber event and the impact it has on the business. These two functions working together can provide a unique experience for the insured as everything is managed in-house. Cyber attacks are not going away, they are forever increasing. A cohesive and effective incident response and claims management function that helps reduce the impact on business has become paramount. Emergence is at the forefront of what that looks like. I'm looking forward to today's webinar. Jerry, over to you.
Thank you, Troy. So Troy has set the scene as to why we've set up the new claims solution. Now let's hear from the man who was charged with bringing it to life. Blake Baxter. Blake has more than 9 years experience working as a specialist in cyber insurance with extensive experience building and managing incident response and claims handling functions, both here in Australia and the United Kingdom. Blake joined Emergence over 8 months ago and has been building the in-house capabilities in that time. Blake has a Bachelor of Business Administration and a Bachelor of Law from Macquarie University. Blake has a unique mix of backgrounds in law and incident response and brings a lot of practical experience to lead this function. Managing cyber claims over such a long period makes Blake the ideal candidate to lead and manage this function. Over to you, Blake.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and good afternoon to all those who are listening. As Jerry mentioned, I joined Emergence in March this year. I'm very excited to announce the launch of Australia's first in-house incident response function, as well as bringing claims in-house. Firstly, today, I'll give a bit of an overview of what I'll be discussing. I'll touch on what our incident response function is, and also talk a bit about our claims function. From there, I'll go on to discuss the benefits of an Emergence cyber breach coach and discuss about what is a cyber breach coach. Followed by that, I'll discuss how a cyber breach coach coordinates and manages incident response, as well as how they manage vendors. I'll then get into who our vendors are and why the right vendor for a particular cyber event is crucial. I'll then go through the life cycle of a claim and focus on why cyber claim specialists are important in that process. I'll then finish up with a recent claims example. It's a ransomware attack that involved a significant amount of exfiltrated data. Incident response and claims handling are crucial in the overall response to a cyber event. There is no point in excelling in one aspect but failing in the other. If incident response is great, but claims management is lacking, then the overall broker and client experience will be below par. That's why we recognize the emergence of getting both right. And by bringing it in-house with dedicated specialists, we believe we've achieved that. In respect to incident response, it's all about the coordination and management of a cyber event. And we are proud to announce that we're the only Australian in-house incident response team. In respect to claims, as you well know, claims handling is crucial in understanding how the policy is responding to a certain cyber event. In other words, is the incident covered? To do this, you need claims handlers who are experts on the policy and understand the demands and pace of a cyber event. Unlike other insurers whose claims handlers sit within a broader claims team across multiple products, such as financial lines, our claims handlers exclusively handle cyber claims. Cyber claims are all we do. I'd like to discuss a little bit about the benefits of an Emergence cyber breach coach. Now, incident response in cyber claims is crucial, so that's why we wanted to bring in at Emergence, have those in-house resources so that they can manage and coordinate that incident response. Importantly, cyber breach coach does not cost, nor does it erode the policy limit. This is an in-house resource and it is at no cost. So other carriers out there in the market, they'll charge for incident response managers and it will erode the policy limit. They may even look to charge the client for their time should the matter not proceed or it transpired that the policy did not respond to the incident. This is not how we handle it at Emergence. As I said, the cyber breach coach comes at no cost, nor does it erode the policy limit. Our cyber breach coaches have real-world incident response experience. They have a broad knowledge of privacy obligations, both within Australia and overseas, and they have a comprehensive understanding of the risks posed by the threat actors out there, both current risk and also emerging risks, really understanding what the latest threats to a business is, and having that in-house expertise and that intel is really quite crucial. One of the important aspects of a cyber breach coach is that they're immediately available to manage and coordinate incident response. Having that immediate access to a cybersecurity expert is crucial, and we see it distinguishes us from others in the market. As Troy mentioned a bit earlier, getting instant response right from the outset is crucial. Getting a business operational as soon as possible, that's really quite important. And as we see it, this is where the Emergence Cyber Breach Coach is really here to help. They can provide immediate assistance, and this is assistance from an expert who really understands what's happening. From that, we can have access to the right vendors. And then there's also an inherent understanding of the importance of getting your business or your client's business as operational as soon as possible. Another key aspect of what the Cyber Breach Coach can offer is around the pre-loss and post-incident functions as well. So pre-loss, prior to there being an event, having an in-house resource means that the Cyber Breach Coach can work with you and your clients to prepare an incident response plan and hopefully to help avoid a cyber event. But should a cyber event occur, and our breach coaches are here to assist and manage the incident response, but at the end of the claim, it's also important to look back at the claim and understand how the security posture of a company, of the insured, can be improved and what learnings can be taken out of the event. So having that in-house resource at the end of the claim is quite crucial to really assess and see how things can be improved to hopefully avoid something like that happening again. Let's move to the next slide here. On the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see we have our cyber hotline. This is the same number that's currently in existence and has been used previously, but it's probably a good opportunity to remind your clients and for yourself just to refresh on the number itself, the 1300 number there. So this is a 24-hour, 7-day a week, 365-day a year offering, and we do strongly recommend that if there is particularly a live incident, that you call through the hotline, and that really enables that immediate assistance. You can also notify through the claims email as well, which is listed up there. But as I said, if it's especially if it's a live incident, call through to the hotline. That's certainly the preference. On the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see the Cyber Breach Coach, the CBC. They're the centre of the incident response approach, and they'll be the individual who will be coordinating the vendors, including IT forensics and legal. Often at the outset of a claim, it's IT forensics are probably going to be the most important vendor to bring involved. Legal can often be quite important early on as well, especially if there's been a data breach or, such as a business email compromise and there's a suspicion that data is involved. If there's the notification requirements that flow from that, bringing a law firm in early as well is important. Around the CBC there, you'll see some of the other vendors which they may be bringing in to help respond to the event. Public relations firms, that's another vendor that can be quite crucial, especially if it's a large claim or if it's a claim that's getting media attention. Having a PR firm to help position the messaging or coordinating with certain stakeholders can be quite important as well. Other vendors, you'll see the credit monitoring can be important in some claims, identity theft specialists, call centres. If there's a lot of notifications or a lot of individuals that need to be notified, having a call centre to help manage that can be important. Forensic accountants, this is more from the business interruption aspect. This is where we'll be appointing a forensic accountant to assess the business interruption impact. Importantly, and this is quite an important point to note, is that insureds can use their own vendors, such as their IT forensics, if they have an existing relationship there or existing vendors. The policy does allow them to use their own vendors, and this is quite an important point and a good part of the emergence policies. Not everyone in the market does that, but we do enable the insured to use their own vendors. Now, our cyber breach coach can assist the existing vendors, and they can leverage off the expertise of our cyber breach coach, who can provide additional guidance. It may well be that we recommend that a panel vendor be engaged, and it's not necessarily to replace the existing vendor, but to supplement the work that they're doing. So just an important point there to note as well. I'll get on to the next slide here, and this is talking about the vendors, and it's the cyber breach coach who will be liaising with these vendors, bringing them involved, and really driving their work and their engagements and what the expectations are. So Firstly, at the top of this slide, you'll note that Emergence is a Lloyd's cover holder. We're backed by some really strong insurers in Markel, Hiscox, and Tokyo Marine. Now, we've spent quite a considerable amount of time pulling together a panel of expert vendors. We wanted to ensure that they're all top of their field and have the expertise to assist our insureds when they need that assistance. So an important aspect of that was that amongst them, they have the geographic reach throughout Australia. There's also the regional reach as well throughout the Asia Pacific region as well. Now, these vendors, they have expertise in managing cyber events, right from small claims in SMEs right through to massive cyber events within ASX listed companies. So they're really able to respond to all sorts of cyber events, regardless of size and regardless of the type of insured. So they have that scalability to respond to all sorts of events and can really bring on those additional resources if they're needed. We recognise the importance of having boots on the ground, as it were. So that's why we really worked hard on having a reach throughout all states in Australia, especially in the IT forensic side. Just talking to some of the specific vendors here on the slide, you'll note up the top in the legal firms where we have Spark Helmore, who has a long association with Emergence, likewise for HWL Ebsworth, and Watt & Carney is a new law firm to the panel. We have a couple of public relations firms in Mediacraft and Kennings Purple. From a forensic accountant point of view, we have Sedgwick, their FAS team, and MDD as well. Credit and ID monitoring, sometimes in the larger claims where there's quite a lot of people impacted, it may be appropriate to offer up the credit monitoring, and this is where we use ID Care or Equifax we've used in the past. Now, at the bottom of the slide, it's probably the most crucial element is the IT forensics, especially at the start of any cyber event. So Gridware, that's an IT forensics company we've had a long association with at Emergence. There's also some new names on the panel here. So we have McGrath-Nickel, we have CyberCX, Vertex, Kroll, and Slipstream. So as I mentioned before, getting the right vendor early on in a claim is quite crucial, and these vendors who are on our panel all have that expertise and work to the standards that we expect. I'd like to get into the life cycle of a claim, and I'd like to focus particularly on the coordination between the cyber breach coach and the claims handler. So with most live incidents, we recommend calling through to the hotline, and that will commence the incident response function. That will enable that immediate assistance from a cybersecurity expert. And what we recognised is that emotion can be very high early on in a claim, especially for an insured who's never suffered such an event before. Likewise for the broker, it might be the broker's first time in dealing with a live cyber event. And what we're here to do is really calm down the situation, give the reassurance that we've got the expertise, we've got the knowledge, we have the experience in handling these cyber events. So we're really here, and the cyber breach coach is here to take control of the situation and take the onus and control of the overall process. So we're here to help, and that's really the role of the cyber breach coach. At the start, they're going to make an assessment of what's happened, what needs to happen, and who needs to be brought in. So that next aspect there is once the cyber breach coach has an understanding of what's occurred, they'll recognise there may be a need to bring in some of our panel vendors, and with the cooperation and agreement of the insured, they can begin that process. So as I mentioned, IT forensics is often one of the most important to bring in early on. Law firms as well can be quite crucial. In the last couple of months, we've seen a bit of an uptick in business email compromise. And with that, there's the data and privacy obligations that flow from having that compromise. Bringing in a law firm early on is quite crucial in those business email compromise cyber events. I'll get onto the coverage position here, and this is really where the claims handler and their role is quite important. So our claims handlers will be active from the start of any cyber event. They'll be coordinating with the broker, letting the broker know that there has been a notification of the hotline if they're not aware. And then what we recognise is the importance of good claims handling. And what we want to do is provide clarity around how the policy will respond, and we want to do that as soon as possible. We understand the needs of you and your client to understand the work that's being done is being covered by the policies. So when there's a cyber breach coach involved, this will enable the flow of that information back to the claims handler quicker than it would have been, which enables us to move forward with our coverage position as soon as possible. And this is where we see the real value of having specialist claims handlers who understand the policy and who can move forward with coverage positions as soon as possible. We're the only insurer or underwriting agency who have claims handlers who solely and exclusively handle cyber claims. Throughout this, the breach coach will continue to manage the incident response to completion. They'll continue to drive the various vendors that have been engaged, and they'll continue to take the ownership of the response and really trying to take the pressure and the burden off the insured as well. Likewise for the claims handler, they'll be continuing, even after a coverage position is put out, they'll continue to be providing updates to the broker, letting you know what's happened from a claims point of view. In respect to the assessment of business interruption, now, if a business had suffered some downtime due to a cyber event, then they may have had an impact on their revenue. And what we'll do here is we'll look to appoint a forensic accountant, and they'll work with the insured to assess that business interruption impact. Now, we've seen these, as claims are becoming more severe, business interruption is becoming more relevant, and especially around indemnity periods and limits, but we are starting to see more and more business interruption claims, and with the more significant events, it can really have quite a significant impact on a business. Now, in respect to third-party claims, it's not necessarily that something the market's seen a lot of to date, but I think going forward, we'll see a lot more claims or third-party claims. So this is a real crucial part of the Emergence cyber policy. And what this is looking to cover is, should a third party bring a claim or litigation against the insured due to a cyber event that the insured has occurred, they may be alleging that there's been a breach of privacy, or that the third party has suffered a financial loss because of a cyber event at the insured. What the policy here will do is look to appoint one of our panel law firms to defend that claim. So once again, the importance of having the right law firm defending that claim is quite crucial. And as I mentioned, I expect to see more and more third-party claims in the cyber realm going forward. Finally, post-incident reporting. Having that in-house cyber breach coach is quite important to look back at a claim at the end of it and understand what's occurred and how things can be improved going forward, especially around the cyber security, that insured cyber security posture. Now, I'll come on now to talk a bit more about cyber claims handling specialists and really the important role that they play throughout. Now, at Emergence, cyber is all we do, and that applies for our claims handlers as well. We are focused exclusively on cyber claims, and from that leads to expertise around the policy and around particular cyber events. As I mentioned earlier, we're the only Australian insurer or underwriting agency who has claims handling specialists who focus exclusively on cyber claims. So what we're looking to do is provide timely and concise coverage positions, and giving the clarity to the insured and the broker about how the policy is responding. And we'll be handling, the cyber claims handler will be involved in the full life cycle of a claim, from initial notification right through to completion. Finally, today, I'll finish up with talking about a recent claims example. Now, this is this was a ransomware attack, and it was the Maze variant of ransomware for those familiar with it. But first I'll give you a bit of context about the insured. So they're a third-generation family-run business. They're in the transport logistics industry. It's largely an Australian business, though it does have a small proportion of revenue derived from overseas, around 3%. So this was a Maze ransomware attack. So it encrypted a significant proportion of data and its systems. And the threat actor here threatened and in fact did release a significant amount of data onto the dark web. the issue with Maze ransomware is that it not only encrypts and locks down a system, but it exfiltrates data. So by exfiltrating data, what I mean there is they're actually taking the insured's data out of the system. Now, because that occurs, from that, there's certain legal and privacy obligations that flow from the exfiltration of data that's occurred. In this particular matter, there was 460 gigabytes of data was exfiltrated, and around 400 of that was gigabytes were published on the dark web. So in layman's term, that's a lot of data. It was a significant amount of data. And from that, the nature of the data they held, it had a global impact. So there was 10 different jurisdictions needed to be notified. There was Australia, there was 4 state supervisory authorities in Germany, and there was other European countries such as UK, Sweden, Poland, Netherlands, and France. So it really did have a global impact. Now, in respect to how it was fixed, the threat actor in this matter wasn't engaged. This was largely, and so there was no ransom paid. And this was largely because the insured kept very good backups. So it enabled the business to get operational quite shortly after the attack. Also, bringing in an IT forensics, a panel IT forensic firm, enabled immediate containment of the attack. So that was quite important to contain the ongoing issue. With the exfiltration data that occurred, it then meant that the most crucial role then really became from a legal perspective and the law firm around the legal and privacy obligations. There had to be a significant amount of notifications throughout Australia and overseas. So having a panel law firm who had that expertise, especially around the obligations in Europe and the GDPR and some of the quite onerous timeframes and penalties that can flow from their obligations in Europe. So having a firm that had the knowledge about overseas jurisdictions, could leverage off other firms to assist in that notification process was quite important. In respect to the policy response, for those familiar with the policy, Section C is a cyber event response cost. So in this case, it was IT forensics costs, quite a bit of legal costs around that notification aspect. There was also some public relations expenses were incurred as well, because it did gain a bit of media attention within the industry-specific media. Finally, I'll just touch on some of the takeouts that we can learn from this particular ransomware attack. And firstly, was the keeping good backups was crucial to getting the business back up and fully operational within only a few days. Now, if they didn't keep good backups, or if the backups were also compromised, it would have led to a significant amount of business interruption impact. And we've seen through some ransomware claims this year and in a similar industry that the business interruption impact can be quite significant from ransomware attacks. In respect to data cataloging and retention policies, this is really looking at a business understanding what data they keep, where they keep it, and making sure they're not holding on to data they don't need to hold on to, or data that's become redundant. So that's quite an important thing for business to really understand what data they hold and how they're holding it. As I mentioned before, as it only had a small proportion of overseas business, it still did hold some overseas data, and that meant that this claim had a global impact. Jurisdictions in Europe had to be notified, and at times there may have only been half a dozen people impacted, but there was still an obligation to do that. This also shows the importance of having a tried and tested instant response plan, and that may just involve knowing what the Emergence hotline is and having conversations with us prior to an event about how we can assist in that process. And from that, using the right vendors, these were panel vendors used in this instance, was quite important to the successful resolution of the matter, which was quite a difficult time for the insured. Finally, there was a proactive public relations strategy. As I said, it did get some media attention, and managing the stakeholder relationships was quite important. So getting on the front foot from a PR perspective was quite important in this matter. Well, that concludes my segment of the webinar. Thank you all, and I'll pass you back to Jerry.
Thank you, Blake. Blake has mapped out the future of cyber claims management for us. Now the mad American, Jeff Gonlin, is going to shed some light on the sort of claims and trends we are seeing in the Emergence cyber portfolio. Jeff is our head of underwriting and product development. Before joining Emergence thousands of years ago, Jeff was General Re's regional chief underwriter for all casualty, facultative, and program business across the Asia Pacific region. I'll hand you over to the man we fondly describe as the Godfather. Thank you, Jeff.
Too kind, Jerry, too kind. Thank you. Hello out there in cyber world. I'm going to take the next few minutes and give you some idea about the claims and trends that we're seeing in our book in Australia. Now, I'm a natural skeptic if it comes to statistics, and some of you may be thinking, yeah, right on. You got to be careful when extrapolating from your own experience. That trend that you spotted might just be noise. You might be fooled by randomness, and how would you know otherwise? Well, when we analyzed our claims data, we compared trends that we're seeing with trends that are being reported by others as well. Example, you might recall we're a contributor to the Verizon DBIR, probably the global standard in cyber claims reporting. I'll mention a few stats from their most recent report, as well as a few other sources that we've relied on to corroborate our findings. Now, I don't have much time, so let's get started by looking at the industries most affected. Here's a snapshot of the three industries that collectively account for about half of our claims count. Verizon says that 86% of cybercrime is financially motivated. We can see that reflected in the industries that are targeted here. Financial and professional, that's about a third of the claims activity. This is where the money is. And there's also healthcare, which is where money is to be made. Professionals accounting for 20%, financials coming in third with 14. These are prime targets for crime, for criminal financial loss, social engineering, cyber theft. Compared to the global stats, we're overweight in the professional area with 20%. Globally, they come in at about 7%. Finance, we've got 14% versus 15% according to Verizon. So we're very much in line. And the same with healthcare, 16% versus 17% globally. What's interesting about healthcare, I think, is look at the cause, and whether we're looking at it, again, globally or just in Australia, it's the same story. Errors or miscellaneous or privacy errors are the main contributors. Similar findings, every single report in the OAIC. Healthcare is up there as a #1 offender, people making mistakes. It's just something about how that industry operates. Now, I don't have OAIC stats this time around, so I'll spare you that. But we're seeing in the meantime, sometimes greater, sometimes less sort of frequency, almost like background noise without a demonstrable trend, you might argue. But that doesn't mean that the nature of claims isn't changing or that the costs aren't increasing. So let's stick with healthcare for a moment. It's a target globally for good reasons. You have, I don't know if I should call them distracted workers, but they're paying attention to patients and instead of machines. And you're prone to make mistakes in that situation. Healthcare is a very valuable commodity on the dark web. And hospitals and clinics make excellent targets for ransomware attacks. And that's what we see also. Ransomware really predominates our book. We're not unique in that regard. Again, look at the Verus data, the framework that Verizon uses. They say ransomware and extortions involved at about 60%. I think it was a ZDNet article I read recently. They pegged it at 41% of cyber claims coming from ransomware. So our experience at 52%, right in the middle there, that looks about right. What accounts for the continued popularity of ransomware? Well, it works. As a business model, it works great on both the low end with kind of petty ransomware and the high end, with, I'll call it the professional ransomware factories. It's an easy game to get into. you don't need high level skills. You can rent rent the ransomware. At the same time, we're witnessing ongoing professionalization of the ransomware industry. We've droned on about it for some time, and I'm going to drone on about it a little bit longer because of let's say three reasons, I think. And it continues to be a major problem. It's getting worse, and I think it's something that you can defend yourself against. So I mentioned that the claim severity was increasing. Well, how bad is it getting? Let's take a look. Ransomware costs are increasing in part because the higher ransoms are being demanded, and in part also because simply the cost to remediate, especially with the newer generation attacks that, as Blake mentioned, exfiltrate data, so you get double ransomed. Those are more costly to remediate. You might be skeptical of that 50% annualized growth rate from 16 to 19. I did double check that as well. I mean, we know the stat's real because it's our claims experience. IBM X-Force, I checked up some of their stats on ransomware, and if you look, it was up 67% from Q4 2019 versus 18. We expected a continuation of that trend. Sure enough, another ZD Net article mentioned that ransom demands in the first half of 2020 were up 47%. So we're right in the ballpark. Accenture recently reported an increase for the most recent period that they were studying in 2020. Ransom demands up 60%. These are big numbers in the meantime. They're going for big game, government agencies or healthcare, as mentioned earlier. Webroot says it believes the average ransom is now around 250,000 Australian. So I mentioned healthcare made a good target. Krebs on Security had, I think about 2-3 weeks ago, had an article highlighting the danger to healthcare as a targeted industry. There's, many of you may have heard of Ryuk. It's a Russian-speaking cyber criminal gang. It's announced it was planning a massive ransomware attack on US healthcare, targeting over 400 healthcare facilities. It's a real industry play. And several of those healthcare facilities have already been reporting activity, that they're being hit. Now, Ryuk ransom demands on average are about 400,000 Australian. So you can see that that's what's driving those ransoms up. Blake mentioned that one of our insurers was hit with a Maze ransomware. Their demands tend on average to be even higher, about 600,000 Australian. So you quickly ramp up, you burn through a lot of cash with demands like that. What can be done though? You can't just sit back and play victim. Well, conventional wisdom says that employee security training is a must. One reputable training outfit that we're familiar with has claimed they could, their training could reduce the click rate by over 40%. Have we seen any supporting evidence of that? Well, yeah, we do see evidence. We haven't seen that 40% specifically, but we have definitely seen, in looking at our own book, that regular training does have a positive effect. That those that engage in good regular training are 15% less likely to have a claim. Now, that's a pretty good return on investment. Looking at other sources, IBM Ponemon has looked at this. They point to 11% reduction. This is something that's easily implemented. It demonstrates results. I mean, why would you not want to do that? So what else did we find? Let's see. Let's go risk management. Let's go left to right on this slide. Now, there's a real message of hope here that I'm bringing. It's not all doom and gloom. on that one on the left of the 51%, 51% ransomware claims had no employee security training or policies. Well, again, being a skeptic, I'm thinking, well, 49% did. So that's about a coin toss, 50-50. So, well, we've already seen, actually, if you look at it separately, training does reduce the likelihood of having a claim. But what I found interesting here is look at the impact on business costs. If you suffer a business interruption with your ransomware, those that had, training had much less severe losses. So it was on average, you're 400% higher if you don't have training, or reverse that, you're lower if you do have training. So, and I'm thinking, well, how could that be? Training alone shouldn't make that much of a difference on your business interruption. But I think it's not just the training that, maybe that the regular effective training correlates with better risk management generally. So that perhaps is some of the effect that we're seeing there. Look in the middle at the 18%. 18% of ransomware events reported to us there it didn't really incur any costs or anything really, zero to insignificant. So in other words, the attack wasn't successful. It was stopped. That made me curious. What do those insureds have in common? Not surprisingly, they're regular good quality backups. Now, how typical is this, you might ask? Well, I looked around to see if there are any other research. There are some state of ransomware reports. I think Sophos put one out on 2020. They reported that there were up to 24% of cases where the attack could be defended. So it can be defended against. It is if effective. Finally, what if you're one of the ones who couldn't defend, and if you're a victim of the new generation ransomware that exfiltrates data first? Well, encryption matters, especially if PII gets exfiltrated. Encryption is your get out of jail free card. It means the difference between a breach and a notifiable breach. Remember, we in the claim example today, the GDPR regulations applied. So it's doubly important if you have even a few customers in the UK, EU, US. Those jurisdictions have much tougher laws and regulations and higher costs. So should you encrypt? Absolutely. So the message here is that these are all preventable losses, or at least you can reduce the impact. We've seen it in our own claims experience, and it's corroborated by numerous studies and reports that risk management does make a difference. These are things you control. If you want to know more about how to help your clients assess that, or how to help them implement better risk management, talk to us. We're happy to engage with you. Okay. Thanks for your time. They're waving at me because I went way over. Sorry about that, Jerry. I'll get out of your hair. Oh, sorry. You don't have to.
Thank you, Jeff. What I find is amazing is that Jeff manages to make cyber stats sound entertaining. So it's always interesting to listen to Jeff and to see where the claims are coming from, and more importantly, looking at how companies can reduce the impact of a cyber attack, and how important having good cyber hygiene in place is for a business's survival. So this is the spot in the webinar where you get to suffer the most. That is, you get to listen to me go on and on and on. My wife says I have this down to a fine art. So at Emergence, we're always looking at how we can do things better and how we can support the only people we deal with, which is you, the brokers. We try and do this in a number of ways. Firstly, every year, we look at the global threat landscape to see how things are changing, both from the threat perspective, but also the regulatory landscape. We look to see how we need to adjust our coverage to keep up to date with trends. We're the only cyber underwriter in the market that releases a new cyber wording every year. This year, we went one step further and released 2 wordings, an updated commercial wording, and the first ever personal cyber policy in Australia. We are also investing heavily in technology to allow us to develop the solutions we want to provide you and your clients. Secondly, education and support. We also invest heavily in providing education and support to brokers and clients in a number of ways, such as client presentations, broker education, webinars like these, access to specialist underwriters and decision makers. In the team, we've got about 190 years of experience, of which Jeff has got about 180 of it. And we also provide thought leadership pieces in terms of white papers and social media blogs. To put this in context, in 2019, we presented to 4,850 brokers and clients during the year. In 2020, with a month and a half to go and all the challenges that COVID has created, we have already presented to over 5,500 people this year. Thirdly, portfolio management. One of the things you never see, but you are the beneficiary of, is portfolio management. We see one of our most important roles as portfolio managers. We provide stability of pricing and coverage through the years. Now, this doesn't mean that our pricing is static. It means as the exposures and trends increase, we adjust our position and our pricing to ensure a profitable portfolio. This also means not jumping in and out of industries or professions we write. It's all about being a safe pair of hands in a class of business that's constantly changing. And finally, we support you and your clients by providing consistent capacity through the cycles. We've been providing 20 million cyber capacity for a number of years now. We can do this because we work with our Lloyd's partners to ensure they understand our business, where we want to bring the business, and what support is required from them to deliver on that strategy. We recently renewed our cyber binders with no change in security, no change to capacities, and no change to capabilities. This allows us to constantly provide you with the solutions, service, and support that you expect from us. So I hope that gives you an understanding of how we like to innovate, but also how we like to deliver solutions to you. You can get access to a lot of what we do via our updated website, which includes our new products, new marketing material, new personal cyber white paper, and our improved portal, which provides you with access to our personal and commercial cyber offerings. For assistance on any cyber-related issues, please feel free to contact any of our growing Emergence underwriting team or our incident response team. We now have the largest cyber team in the country, and we are only focused on one thing, that's cyber. Never forget, as cyber specialists, all we do is cyber, nothing else. Our incident response team telephone number is also there, which is the same number for personal and commercial claims. The Emergence Incident Response Team is available, as Blake mentioned, 24/7 and manages the claims process to minimize the threat and save your client time and money. Now today, we'd like to acknowledge a few brokers around the country. These brokers don't know we're doing this today, so I hope it's a pleasant surprise for them. We've been doing these quarterly webinars consistently since 2017. Our first webinar attracted 447 brokers and clients. Our last webinar had over 1,700 brokers tune in. In total, we have had 15,000 people who have registered for these webinars. Would you believe it? There are only 7 brokers in Australia who have registered for all but one of our webinars. Today, we'd like to acknowledge their continued support. These 7 brokers are Peter Keith of Goulburn Insurance Brokers, Russell and Jeremy Smith from New England Insurance Brokers, Trish DeRode from CC Insure, and Michelle Dumpleton from CC Insure as well, Surinder Carr, Insurance for You, and Carol Muir from Fenton Green. So a big thank you to all of you for your continued support. A $100 Visa gift card and one of our new Emergence caps is on its way to you. I said we were running a competition today. Firstly, congratulations to Christina Lyra D'Souza of Woods Midland in Perth, who won our June webinar competition. Today, you're all automatically in the draw to win a Google Nest Hub just for tuning in. We will advise the winner of the prize by email by this Friday, the 20th of November. As I mentioned earlier, all attendees will be entitled to 1 CPD point. We will automatically send out the certificates of attendance to the email address you used to register for the event. For those attendees listening as a group, such as in a boardroom, even though I don't think there's got to be many of those today, please send a list of attendees now, including full name and email address, to info@emergenceinsurance.com.au so we can issue each attendee with the certificate of attendance. So a number of you have posted some questions. Troy's finally earned his salary this week by answering a number of the Q&As during the webinar, but he's got a few interesting ones that we thought we'd talk about as a group.
Well, I've answered most of them while you've been rabbiting on. Jeff, just while it's top of mind, you mentioned ransomware and Maze. You want to just talk about that experience we had with the club in Queensland when they asked for a ransom, and we
they're getting the ransomware these days is they're becoming more and more sophisticated. You know, they get into your system, they'll snoop around, they figure out who they're dealing with, and of course they've got access to all of your records and such, and they know what the value of the business is to you and how much your bank account is worth and what you can pay. And it's like, hey guys, it's just a business, you know. Look, we know you can afford this, and don't muck around, okay?
But they said that we've got access to your financial records, and we know you can afford this ransom, so stop bullshitting us.
Yeah,
which was quite interesting.
They probably know you got cyber insurance too, which is, well, sorry.
Blake, we're not letting you off the hook. You spoke about one of the benefits of the cyber breach coach and the ability that it does not erode the policy limit. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yep. Thanks, Troy. So just on that aspect of one of the benefits of the cyber breach coach. So the insured's not going to be charged for that, but also importantly, the time that's being spent by the cyber breach coach, that's not being put back on the policy limit either. So with other providers out there, if it's an incident response manager or if it's breach coach type work, that on those larger claims with the costs that are being incurred by that incident response manager, that will erode the policy limit, meaning if it's a large claim, there'll be less to actually pay out on the balance of the policy limit remaining. So with the Emergence cyber breach coach, that's not how that occurs. So that the limit then becomes entirely available for any other losses that are suffered under the policy, the other cyber event response cost. So it's just a cost that in other carriers would be eroding that limit. With Emergence, it's not.
While it's top of mind, I mentioned at the start of the show the 243 personal cyber policies that the business bought. So as a result of that, we generated, or we've made some magnets to be sent out to those employees, and we've taken that even broader. So we've made a lot, and they'll be shipped to all the corners of the country. So if you've got clients that want a magnet, which basically just has our incident response hotline, and they can stick it on the side of a server, side of their computer, their terminal, whatever, rather than have a policy document that ends up being encrypted because of ransomware, and they're struggling to find where the phone number is, it's certainly something to be front of mind. So just yell out to your local like a representative, and we can get that sorted.
Thanks, Troy. So I'm just mindful of the time. Before we sign off today, I leave you with a thought for today. Cybersecurity is taking a more important role in business today, and we're seeing that with a lot of boards finding that they're personally responsible from a D&O perspective as well. So on behalf of Emergence, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join our webinar today. We know you've got many demands on your time. I hope you've got a greater understanding now of our new in-house incident response and claims management solution. If you need access to the Emergence portal or your password reset, just email us at info@emergenceinsurance.com.au. For your information, all of our previous webinars are also available anytime on YouTube. Just search for Emergence Insurance on YouTube and you'll find them all there. You can also keep up to date with our social media posts by subscribing to Emergence Insurance on LinkedIn. We will also send you a short survey to gain your feedback on today's webinar and to get your thoughts on what cyber-related topics you'd like to see in future webinars. We would really appreciate if you could complete the survey in the next few days. We will use the feedback to plan our webinar series for 2021. The next webinar in our series will be in February, so keep an eye out for that. We will send you an invite a few weeks beforehand. This is the official end of the webinar. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.